Did you know that learning a language can change your personality, and even the way you think about time and space?
That's fascinating. What do you mean by that? Can language really have such a profound impact on our minds?
Yes, research has shown that bilingual people tend to have different perceptions of time and space, and it's all connected to the language they speak.
That's a great topic, and today we're going to explore how language and culture are intertwined, and what that means for language learners.
Exactly, and we'll be discussing some common phrases that can help you break the ice and connect with native speakers, but also some common mistakes to avoid, like using the phrase break the ice in the wrong context.
That's right, and most learners get the phrase in my book completely wrong, so we'll be looking at that one in more detail.
So, let's start with the phrase break the ice. What's the correct usage of this phrase, and how can learners use it in real-life situations?
Well, break the ice means to do or say something that helps people relax and feel more comfortable in a social situation, like telling a joke or making a lighthearted comment.
That makes sense, and I've seen people use this phrase at parties or networking events, but what's a common mistake that learners make when using this phrase?
One common mistake is using the phrase break the ice in a formal setting, like a business meeting, where it might not be appropriate, and instead you could use a phrase like call it a day to suggest ending the meeting.
Ah, I see, so call it a day means to stop what you're doing and go home, but what about the phrase cost an arm and a leg? How does that fit into everyday conversation?
Well, cost an arm and a leg means something is very expensive, like a luxury item or a high-end service, and learners often use this phrase to express that something is too pricey.
Here's the weird part, though. Some learners think that cost an arm and a leg is a literal phrase, and they get confused when they see someone buying something expensive without actually giving up a limb.
Yeah, that's a common misconception, and it's a great example of how language and culture can be misunderstood. But what about the phrase cut to the chase? How does that one work?
So, cut to the chase means to get to the point or the most interesting part of a conversation, without wasting time on unnecessary details.
Exactly, and learners often use this phrase in formal settings, like meetings or presentations, to suggest that the speaker should get to the point more quickly. But what about the phrase give someone the cold shoulder? How does that fit into everyday conversation?
Well, give someone the cold shoulder means to deliberately ignore or show indifference to someone, like if you're upset with them or don't want to talk to them.
That's right, and learners often struggle with this phrase because it's an idiomatic expression that doesn't translate literally, but it's a common way to describe a social situation where someone is being deliberately unfriendly.
Here's the weird part, though. Some learners think that give someone the cold shoulder means to literally give someone a cold shoulder to cry on, like a physical gesture of comfort.
Yeah, that's a funny mistake, but it highlights the importance of understanding the cultural context of language, and how phrases can be used in different situations to convey different meanings.
And that's why it's so important to practice using these phrases in real-life situations, like in conversations with native speakers, to get a feel for how they're used in context.
Absolutely, and that's why we say that learners who are struggling with these phrases are in the same boat, because they're all facing the same challenges in trying to navigate the complexities of language and culture.
Exactly, and by practicing these phrases and understanding their usage, learners can improve their language skills and connect more easily with native speakers.
Here's the weird part, though. Some learners think that being in the same boat means that everyone is literally on the same boat, like a physical vessel, and they get confused when they realize it's just a metaphor.
Yeah, that's a common misconception, but it's a great example of how language and culture can be nuanced and context-dependent, and how important it is to understand the subtleties of language to communicate effectively.
Well, let's summarize some of the phrases we've discussed today, like break the ice and give someone the cold shoulder, and how they can be used in real-life situations to connect with native speakers.
Okay, so imagine you're at a party and you want to break the ice. You could tell a joke or make a lighthearted comment, and then if someone is being unfriendly, you could say they're giving you the cold shoulder. But if you're all struggling with the same language challenges, you're in the same boat.
Exactly, and today's challenge is to use one of these phrases in a sentence in the comments below, and see how you can apply these phrases to your own language learning journey.
And if you want to learn more about language and culture, and how to improve your language skills, be sure to tune in tomorrow when we'll be discussing the topic of English pronunciation.
If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe for daily English practice, and we'll see you in the next video.